Let's talk about that defense, though, in general. I mean, Patrick Mahomes on the surface, again, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, good offensive line. It's actually not that crazy to think that they've figured it out offensively this late into the season, but the defense has really been what's carried them at times. So, but one question I have is the run defense. Okay. This seems to be the weakness, and we're going to talk about injuries in a minute, but Nadi, I know, was a big part of that run defense, and he is now out. Yep. Going against the 49ers, you know you're going to get a heavy dose of run. Now, I would have thought I could have said the same about the Ravens, which was a big reason I was picking them to win that game. They didn't run the ball. So I don't know what happened there. I don't know if that was scheme or if that was by design or what was going on. But the 49ers, I imagine, are not going to abandon the run in the same manner with Christian McCaffrey back there. Yeah. Do you feel like that's a legitimate weakness of this defense, or do you think that that's just something that the Chiefs defense has been willing to give up a little bit because they're so predicated on stopping the pass? How do you view the Chiefs defense?
Yeah, it's definitely concerning for sure. I'm with you. That was what scared me about the Ravens. It's like they run so much, and then they only ran it 6 times, which is kind of crazy. So I don't know what happened. I actually saw a quote today, I think it was legit, where Harbaugh said that their game plan was to run the ball. And for what? Oh, he blamed it on lack of time. He was like, we only had the ball for 9 minutes in the first half. And it's like, okay, well, that's like, you could still just keep trying.
Well, you weren't running. So maybe if you had ran the ball instead of throwing incomplete passes, you would have had the better time possession. Yeah. But anyways.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, it is concerning in that respect. But the glimpse of hope I do have is that going into the Ravens game, the Chiefs knew or had to know, hopefully, that this was a weakness for them because the Bills ran like all over them pretty much in that game. And it was concerning. And so when the Ravens game came up, I have to think that it was in their game plan. Like, hey, like we got to stop this. And really, I mean, the Ravens obviously didn't try very much, but the runs they did have, I think they only had one big run outside of Lamar Jackson. So, like, the Chiefs really did focus in and stopped the ball carriers when that did happen. So my hope is that, you know, they look at that same game plan and say, listen, we practiced for this for like a week and we didn't have to use it. So, like, here we go with Christian McCaffrey. Let's put together what we were already planning on trying against the Ravens and just see what happens. And I think that if the Chiefs can dial in, stop the run game, it's going to put a lot of pressure on Purdy, and I think he's going to wilt. I don't think he's going to be able to handle it, and that's where things will start going downhill.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how that whole thing plays out. I mean, if I were the Chiefs, I think on paper saying, okay, well, you can choose to die by the Christian McCaffrey sword or the Brock Purdy sword. On the surface, you would say, okay, let's put all of our resources into stopping Christian McCaffrey. Let's go single high. Let's trust our corners on the outside to be able to stay in man, and let's see what happens. I will say this. I know that the one commenter said I'm a Brock Purdy hater, but I don't want to get off brand here as a Brock Purdy hater. But one thing that I do know is, regardless of what's going on, I don't think Brock Purdy's going to wilt mentally. Now, maybe that doesn't mean he's going to play great and go be the reason that the 49ers win. Sure. But I do think that, like, mentally he's going to stay tough in this game, and he will. It's going to be close. Like, one way or another, it'll be close. But I will say, like, that's got to be the game plan for the Chiefs. Single high, man coverage, stop Christian McCaffrey, and then figure it out from there. You can always adjust on the fly. And one thing I'll say about Steve Spagnuolo that I really like and respect is that when you watch his game plans for the last 3 weeks, they've been vastly different every single game. And that's on 1 week notice. Now you're giving him 2 weeks notice to figure this out. He will have this defense in a good position to make it very, very hard on the 49ers. And that, to me, is really the key of this game. If I can give one big key to the game, it's Shanahan's offensive mind versus Spagnuolo's defensive mind. I think that is the chess match of this game, and whoever can come out ahead in that matchup is going to be the reason that their team probably wins the Super Bowl. So I'm looking forward to that matchup big time.
Yeah, me too. That's what I'm excited to see. I think, obviously that same matchup happened 4 years ago in the Super Bowl. People didn't really talk about much back then because it was Spagnuolo's first year with the Chiefs, and so it was still developing and all these things. And over the last 4 years, his defenses have gotten progressively better, and to now where we're talking about, we're like, oh man, like the Chiefs defense is really, really good all of a sudden. And so now, whereas 4 years ago, it might've been, you know, instead of Spags, Andy Reid in that conversation, right? Like Shanahan versus Reid, the two offensive masterminds of the league going head to head. Now it's like Andy Reid's actually taking a back seat. It's going to be Shanahan and Spags, these two guys going up against each other, see who can come out on top. And so I'm excited. I think sorry, 49ers fans. I think the Chiefs defense are going to limit the 49ers offense and help them get a win.
I think that first drive is going to be crucial for the San Francisco 49ers, especially because one thing I notice about the Kansas City Chiefs when watching them is they play a lot of too high shells early on in games, especially. And they play just a straight almost cover two for a whole drive trying to figure it out. And then from there, it's like they see some game speed, they figure out what the offense wants to do, and they adjust like crazy. So that first drive, I think they're susceptible to being scored on. And that's when the 49ers have been their best. They score on the opening drive almost every single game this season. They're going to need to score in this game on that opening drive. So if the 49ers don't score on drive one, internally, I'm going to be very, very nervous about how the rest of the game is going to play out because it takes a drive for Spagnuolo's defense to kind of settle in. And usually the 49ers are out in front of most teams' defense on drive one. So 49er fans, I think drive one is going to be extremely crucial to how this game results. The game results might play out in this one. So pay attention to that one. I think it's going to be absolutely huge. But Greg, it is interesting because when I think of the 49ers under Shanahan, yes, Shanahan is a great offensive mind, but really this team has been driven by defense. But now when you look at this team, it's an offensive-led team. That's just what it is. Outscoring their opponents in the playoffs. That's kind of been what it's about. And really, you've seen this progression towards the tail end of last year when they got Christian McCaffrey, transitioned to Purdy. The offense is kind of taken over. The defense is on a little bit of a downhill slope. Not bad by any means, but not as great as they've been. And then when you think of Kansas City, you think of offense, you think of Mahomes and Kelsey and Tyreek Hill and Andy Reid and that high-flying offense and a defense that is opportunistic, but not great. And they've both kind of just flipped roles here. You got the offensive 49ers and the defensive Chiefs. Something's got to give in this game. That's what makes this matchup so interesting. And in just 5 short years, these teams have completely flipped how they get it done. It is kind of cool to see.
Yeah, I agree. I liked your comment about the first drive. I agree. I think that first drive is going to be crucial. Seeing, like you said, these two teams have flipped and seeing the progressions they've come along. And you are right. It takes the Chiefs defense like usually one drive to figure things out, which is why, as you watch their games, they allow so few points in the second half because by the time they get to the second half, it seems like they've got the offense figured out. And so, there is no issue. That's honestly when they played the Ravens last week. That first drive, the Ravens had the ball. And it was a 3-and-out, and I was shocked because you're right.
Wait, what?
Usually it takes a drive or two for the Chiefs defense to get into gear. And when they stopped them on the first drive, I thought, man, this is gonna be a tough one for the Ravens. Like if they can't get a score on this first drive, it's gonna be a tough day for them. So yeah.
Well, and if I flip it to the other side, the Chiefs offense, I think in all 3 playoff games has scored a touchdown on their first drive as well. So that's going to be something that the 49ers defense is going to have to deal with. So 49er fans, you should feel really good if the 49ers can score a touchdown on their first drive and hold the Chiefs to 3 or less. You got to feel great about that. But if anything else plays out, if that plays out opposite and the Chiefs score and the 49ers don't, it could be a long Super Bowl that we're in for. So that first drive is going to be very, very crucial for these two teams in particular. And I don't think that's the case for every team across the league, but just the way that these two teams have played and do play traditionally throughout the season, going to be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, for sure.